than one game on Hammer?
No, I tried Bridgehead for the first time, and
Okay.
it's
Wow.
obscene, so I feel bad playing it. But once they fix that, I'm sure we'll actually play real Warhammer after. But
Yeah, I always feel bad telling people, it's like, all right, I'm going to shoot my Scions. They are hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s with sustained. And also, now I'm going to be wounding your toughness 12 things on 4s, rerolling. And then they're like,
yeah,
what?
it's effectively anti everything 3.6 plus with like the shittiest gun, which is not balanced at all. I mean,
Yeah,
if they're touching an objective, right? But
yeah. But even then, like, if you're shooting at things that are not on objective, like any kind of Marine, you're wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s anyway. So, like, it's like, all right,
you just
cool.
point at stuff and say, "All right, that's dead. That's dead. You can pick it up. We can skip the rolling phase."
Yeah.
So
Oh, you have an invul? Okay, well, we'll actually roll it out then. Sometimes 4 pluses do funny things. Robert, have you been playing any super heavies at all? I know you were doing your thing with agents for a little while.
Yeah. In hindsight, both were probably a mistake. But yeah, bringing agents to Worlds was probably up there on the not smart decision chart. But no, super heavy. If you can't order super heavies, I mean, they're already not like the greatest choice, but it made people play different. That's why I brought them. But now, not being able to order them, yeah, they're dead.
Yeah, what happened with agents then? Because I know you were talking about it. I remember hearing you saying it's like wait whether you go guard or whether you experiment with something else.
Yeah, so agents I think could have play if they actually gave them one, like some sort of army rule, or even just reworked them where it's just like, hey, because they have like that pseudo oath thing. If they gave them like +1 to wound, then you would be looking at something like a bridgehead detachment, which gets wonky all of a sudden because they have a ton of reroll wounds. They have dev wounds for days, but I mean, they just can't play the game as good,
Yeah, that's true. I
or
mean,
really at all in a lot of cases.
as a guard player, we know that 3 plus bodies, even if you give them a 4 up invul, are still toughness 3 bodies at the end of the day. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. It sounds like things are working out all right. So welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Guard Roundtable. I'm, of course, Joshua J. Howard, and I have some familiar faces with me today. I'll go ahead and start off. I'm going to go clockwise. He looks like a hamster right now, but I've gotten several of the top guard players across North America to come talk about the Combined Regiment and Hammer of the Emperor. And one of these players, Mr. Hamster himself, Nick Jagiello, coming in from Canada. And Nick, you are the one person I asked to do a roundtable that was actually really excited about Hammer of the Emperor. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about that. What are some early thoughts that you have on it?
in terms of just how Warhammer works and scoring points, the ability to warp spider a Taurox across the board and like score max secondaries turn one is putting you ahead a lot because sometimes you're just drawing your cards like, oh, it's a 0 point turn for secondaries and primary. But if you don't have that turn, you're well ahead in terms of how the game actually works. So the more chances you can score, the more often you're going to win. You might not be doing as much damage as combined, or definitely not as much as Bridgehead, but you can also like snipe key pieces and like exploit like bad formations or like holes they've left because it's really hard to play around. If anyone like plays against really good Eldar players, you know how much speed wins the game, and
Yeah.
Bridgehead is not Bridgehead. Hammer of the Emperor has all the speed you want. So I think there's a lot more play to it than people are giving it.
Yeah, well, we'll go ahead and get to talking about that a little bit later. I'm also joined in the bottom left. We have Robert Moreland, the king of super heavies himself, the sultan of the storm sword. But he betrayed us a little bit at the World Championships of Warhammer playing agents. Still had a decent run, though. How are you doing today, Robert?
I'm doing pretty good. I have since gone to the hospital after apparently getting kicked in the head by a horse and bringing agents. I'm a little bit better now.
I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. I mean, hopefully you still had fun at the event. It was great from
Yeah.
everything I've heard. Nice.
Yeah, it was a blast. Self-esteem a little lower, but
If you played a good army, it would have been fine, but that's all right. And lastly, in the top left, we do have David Purcell coming in from Atlanta once again, just getting over from being sick, and also had a lot of fun things to say about Bridgehead. David, you've been asking every single time. You look at every single detachment, it's like, is this better than just playing the index? And I'm curious, what are you feeling about it so far?
Bridgehead is broken. Everyone knows that.
Yep.
There's nothing much to say there. Other than that, every list I've looked at that people have written in like Siege or Hammer or whatever is, what if you just played combined arms and like took the good stuff and you'd win more? So like,
Yeah.
I know you're running one of these for every detachment and you can just clip this or like give me to record it separately, but the question for all of them is like, why is this better than a pile of good units in combined arms? What are you doing that's better? The answer is probably nothing. You're playing with chimeras and -1 to hits when you could just kill people.
I mean, that's a pretty fair argument. So I guess with that, then we'll go ahead and come to Nick. We've had access to all of the rules in this codex, both officially and unofficially, for about like 2-ish weeks now. And I heard you said that you've only played one game so far with this. What was your initial impression so far of what we have in the codex?
Torox is good. Torox go fat. Whether it's, I'm thinking like a mix is probably, like you definitely want a Casterkin box, a heavy flamer box, and probably an engineer box to have like your pick of which unit YOLO's in for, like first turn, second turn. Like they're scoring your secondaries, taking up space, like being annoying, like looking for holes to drive in and pop a character or do some wounds or block some movement. Just like consistent access to not having to worry about like screening the backfield. Like Bridgehead is amazing, but like really good players with lots of trash and MSU will like push out your drop deployment zones, depending on the layouts too. I'm mostly on WTC, so it's a lot easier to push Bridgehead back and you're not getting optimal lines. But Torox going 27 inches turn 1 or 21 like turn 2 on forward is just going where it wants to go most of the time. And like the ability to score points is just consistent. So it's really being able to kill stuff, because losing lethal hits is a big deal. That's essentially +1 a wound army wide. Like the targets going into the optimal ones, the big stuff versus big stuff, level stuff versus little stuff. So you're definitely less killy. The anti-tank's a bit annoying, but I mean the caster can make it up a little bit if your mortals decide to cooperate. Engineers I haven't done a whole bunch with yet, so I'm still kind of iffy. It's a lot of points. They're kind of cool. I'm anti-artillery because I just don't
boring.
like it in general. I've done like 8 mortars for quite a while now, just a whole bunch of games, and like into optimal matchups like GSC and Dark Eldar, and just like, oh, I killed a Scourge or 2 with like 8 guys shooting at it. Sometimes that happens, and then I'm just getting pushed in. Like, I don't know. Mechanized is nice. The Dorn Commander fills in the order role. You probably want a Solar just for the redeploys to make sure you get like those Torox lines turn 1 to exploit any weaknesses and like screening. Because again, it's really hard to screen the 27.
Yeah, I mean, it is just so fast. I've probably seen that a little bit myself. But Robert, it sounds like you've gotten a couple of games so far with the Codex. What are some initial impressions?
So I overall agree. Like at a certain point, why not just take combined, right? Because even whenever I was making my mechanized, right, I'm sitting there going, man, these chimeras would actually be pretty solid if they had lethal hits against vehicles. It's just like I got a whole lot of stuff going on here. But to me, it's more of the tech pieces, right? Like, so I've been testing mechanized is to the point that was just made, right? A good player can screen out Bridgehead, right? And I mean, I've had to wait to drop till turn 3, or if you want to do the funny thing and just drop one every turn and then just uppy and downy for free with Creed and then just wait till turn 4 or 5. But at that point, you're losing so much board control that it starts to be an issue. But with like mechanized, it's like, all right, you know what? I can still put pressure on there. And what I appreciate are the movement tricks, right? I mean, reactive moving to transport, still solid. Does it come up all the time? No. But when it does, it's nice, right? Oh, you're trying to charge my Casterkin block. great. They're getting back in the transport. You can charge the transport, right? So I see a lot of the other detachments more for their tech pieces and not necessarily their raw power, right? Because whenever you look at raw power, I mean, combined arms, it's consistent. You know what everything does. Bridgehead, I mean that's broken level power, right? But it can still be countered by movement,
Yeah.
right? So I haven't gotten to play with Hammer of the Emperor yet. I agree with a lot of the movement tricks because I was playtesting even the new Custody detachment and being able to go through walls. People don't, I mean, it takes a second to fully comprehend how much extra movement that gives you, right? I mean, you're really getting wherever you want to go when you want to get there.
Yeah.
So I see the other couple detachments really as more of, okay, what I want to play that surgical game, right? I'm going to launch that Chimera, that Torox at you. I'm going to take away some pieces that I know you need to score. And then I'm just going to make it just annoying enough where you're going to have to actually dedicate stuff to kill it, right? It's not just going to be, all right, we're going to trade.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm going to make you dedicate 3 things when you really only needed to dedicate 2, right? And over the course of a game, it adds up.
Yeah.
So otherwise, though, I mean, raw firepower, you can't beat Bridgehead. And if you're just going to try to march up the board, just go combined, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. David, I know you've gotten plenty of games, or at least you've potentially, I've seen the most theory crafting out of you at the very least with the new codex stuff. You keep saying, it's like, why aren't we playing this in combined? What's been your experience so far in the codex?
So there's a couple games when I first started out where my lists were just awful because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. Bad order mixes, weird unit choices. But once I refined it down and got to like the second 5 out of the 10 or so games that I practiced with, it felt pretty much back like Index. The siege cannons are good. They're pretty solid playable pieces that, depending on what you need, are solid. Tank commanders are awful. RIP my boys, but you don't play Lehman Russ tank commanders anymore. Just put those in the bin. And then this is going to shock everyone, but the Rogodorn tank commander is good enough that even I'm willing to play it. Just 1. You're not going to catch me with 2 because I don't want to build 2 of those chunguses. But
I see
have
Robert's
1
table.
on
He's
my
got at least
list.
2 right there ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah, shocked everybody when I showed the Amazon link where I finally bought one.
Yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen before, David has been the longtime Dorn hater for forever. So finally seeing a time where he's like, maybe the Dorn has some play, some character growth that we love to see.
All it took was nerfing the points and rules on literally every unit I've ever played, the entire edition, and finally the Dorn is good.
Yeah.
And coming out with a whole new version of it. The original's still not.
Yeah. Before we get to talking about the rest of Combined Arms, I do want to get like a brief question for all of you guys on that tank commander thing. We can go ahead and come back to you real quick, David. With the Demolisher cannon going from D6 plus 3 to D6 plus 1, what is, let's say I have to, there's a gun to my head, I have to take a tank commander on my list. What gun should I be putting on top?
The plasma gun is fine. It's not. I'm not excited about it, but like flat 3 damage is okay. If you can get the lethals, rerolling 1s off like a scout sentinel or something, it'll work. It's a little longer range, so you can kind of protect it a little bit better. Which in some detachments you need to protect your orders pretty well. So if you need something that you're willing to expose on firing lines, but not within 24 inches, plasma's there. None of the other guns are really playable. Like, if you put a Vanquisher cannon on a tank commander, I will make fun of you. Even as you tell me that it shot on death and killed something, it's like, I don't
Great.
care. You made the wrong choice. You're wrong. It would probably just be plasma if you had to, for the meme of, like, put 3 plasma guns on it, shoot it, overcharge, kill itself, shoot again, because that's funny.
Yeah.
And even then, like...
Robert, agree, disagree?
Yeah. I mean, it's already a casino cannon, right? And it's like, all right, so you're telling me now it's possible I only roll 2 shots and do 2 damage? Like, I mean, I'm a gambling man. Don't get me wrong. I lost a lot of money in Vegas. All right, but it's because I lose a lot that I'm like, I don't like the possibility of me only getting 2 shots. But so I mean, for AP and consistent damage, yeah, I agree. Plasma's
Yeah.
really the only way to go. But even then, I hate the strength of it. So
Yeah.
maybe don't bring a tank commander. Or just shoot me. You said
These are the only two options. Now, Nick, I know you've been a long-time fan of the Exterminator autocannon. Does that have a place on the tank commander, or is it still plasma if we have to?
Tank commander has always been a meme, in my opinion, so it's the plasma cannons.
All right, well, there we go. I mean,
it's a good unit. I just hate the mechanic of it.
oh, all right, totally fair. I was gonna say, because like I know there are tank commanders who are making their way into your lists.
Occasionally the one, but I've never like appreciated the presence. Like I ran one at Worlds just because GW terrain is more open, but
Yeah.
it literally never shot on death, and it always died miserable deaths to like grenades and melee and whatnot. So like the better players you play against, the worse they tend to get, and that's a lot of eggs in a basket. And I always find the more trash, the more space I can take up, and once you get those like turn 4 or turn 5 like recovers or sabotages, you're like, oh, here's my piece of garbage left over because I spent less points on units that I can actually get that action done, which has been consistently good.
Yeah. All right, makes sense. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about the combined arms detachment. I have the brand new codex. Ooh, right in front of me. It's got the colored edges on the pages. We can kind of go through this pretty quickly, gentlemen, because most of this is identical to what it was in the index. If you guys have something you really want to say, go ahead and stop me, but I'm just going to go ahead and go through things until we get to some of the new stratagems and the new enhancement, and then we can talk about that one because I think it's funny. But to start off with, guys, we have Born Soldiers. It's the same thing. If you're a regiment unit, you get lethal hits if it's not a monster or vehicle, and if you're a squadron unit, you get lethal hits if it's a monster or vehicle. This is really strong. Like, yeah, we've done videos on this before. This is approximately equal to +1 to wound. Like, if you're just doing back of the napkin math, you're going to get about the same number if you just assume that. It's good. It's very good, especially on things like Meltas. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the enhancements. We have the Death Mask of Alanius. Officer model only. When you're battle shocked, you subtract 1 for objective control instead of changing it to 0. Fine. Like, you know, it's there. Sometimes if you have 10 points left over, you'll put it on something that it does literally nothing. But otherwise, I don't think I've ever seen... Have any of you guys ever used this, like, intentionally? No?
On a big Krieg unit with the, like, Marshal taking it so that if they do somehow fail Battle Shock, which they already don't, they still get 1 OC. But, yeah, it's like...
It's just kind of there.
I would rather get a better unit with the 10 points in any real list.
Makes sense. All right, Drill Commander, this is exactly the same. Officer model only while you remain while you're leading a unit. If you remain stationary, you get crit 5s. And I see a lot of people asking about this on places like Reddit or YouTube comments or whatever. You can put this on a tank commander, but it doesn't do anything because that unit is not leading a bodyguard, and therefore you're never leading a unit. I've seen some funny builds with people doing this on Reddit. You put it in an old infantry squad where you would get like 2 or 3 mortars on a solar unit. Guys, it's not worth it. It's there. Grand Strategist, same as before, officer model only. In your command phase, I think this might have gotten reverted to not having the correct wording again in the codex, and I don't remember seeing if it got fixed or not, but you can issue...
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. But you can issue an additional order. This is good. I mean, this made a lot of index lists work, but it's less powerful now because everything has more orders that are our vehicles. And we're going to go ahead and come to David first, because I'm sure you're going to say something funny about this next one. We have Reactive Command. Officer model only. Each time an enemy unit is set up within 9 inches of the bearer's unit, the bearer can issue 1 order. This is not counted towards the number of orders the bearer can issue in a battle round. Is there literally any time this does anything?
This is really, really powerful if you're bad at positioning, and they get to drop Accolons on your home field with the 6-inch drop, and then you can duty an honor up to prevent them by spending an enhancement to solve a problem you could have solved instead by putting a model an inch closer to your objective edge. So that's like really strong if you just want to be bad, but then surprise people. There you go.
There you go. Robert, did you have anything to add there?
No, that just about sums it up.
Yeah, this is about the worst enhancement I can think of. If it was moved within...
I did not understand what was going on with the text.
If it was moved within 9 inches of the bearer's unit and then you can issue an order, like, that's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, sometimes you can give yourself, like, take cover or something reactively. But
it's incredibly niche. They could have just added it only works on Tuesdays, and it would be about.
That's true. It doesn't work at any of our GTs on the weekends. All right. Okay, Nick, I'm going to come right back to you because we got our first stratagem that has actually changed. We have coordinated action for 1 CP. At the start of any phase, 1 regiment unit from your army and 1 squadron unit from your army within 6 inches and visible to that regiment unit until the end of the phase. Orders affecting one of your units affect the other, and vice versa. Nick, what are your thoughts on like how we're going to use this, and what are some ways that you can imagine it?
Like the order, this doesn't stack orders, right? I can't double move.
Rules as written, maybe, but I guarantee as soon as any TO rolls in it, they're going to say no.
Yeah, unlikely.
I don't think you can move twice, but you can get like first rank, second rank, and move, and have both apply or something.
It's cute, but like you can just be better with orders in general. Like you have a ton more orders now anyway, with like every officer essentially getting +1. There's some like minor cases where you can get a couple extra shots or whatever. Like I don't really care if my Rogaldorn's heavy stubbers are firing an extra shot with a rapid fire, but and it'll come up every so often once the blue moon. Like you might want to move and have more firepower or something, but it's
So
not.
I think this is actually a lot better than you're letting on. Just for like playing with us a lot more. It enables a lot of really weird things that people aren't expecting because it's any phase. So you can use it like as a second instance of the flexible command strat or inspired command. Yeah, so you can inspired command, duty and honor a unit, and then coordinated action that duty and honor over to a second one. You can also use it to like sort of launder orders. So if you only have a regiment order, you can issue the regiment order to a regiment unit and then transfer it over. So one thing I've been doing a lot is having a Scion command squad, like the Scion brick, and a Lehman Russ battle tank. They both drop in, the Scions get take aim, and then they share it over to the Lehman Russ. So you can get, you don't get the full effect of the strat, but 1 CP, give a Russ take aim is still pretty solid. So there's lots of just weird tricks you can do with it, and it's probably taken up more mental space than it should with like when you're assigning your orders, just keeping a duty and honor and keeping a take cover on random units in your backfield so that you can then share it out if they suddenly need take cover on something else has come up like 3 times in 10 games, but it's one of those things that you hate if you didn't do it and then you needed it. And it also works with Creed's unit that can have 2 orders, or Kassakin that can have 2 orders. So if you, for some reason, really need that. And it lets you move a tank in your movement phase and then still keep take aim on that tank. So there's a lot more play than there initially looks like if you start just looking for all the weird ways that you can waste your CP on slight advantages.
Yeah. Now, Robert, I got one weird thing that I've seen someone comment on before with the usage of coordinated action. I want to get your thoughts on it. Because there are actually a fair number of things that are rapid fire that you could put inside a Chimera. Okay. And then you could potentially give take aim to, like, I don't know, some Sentinels or whatever. Is this ever worthwhile where you can suddenly take your Chimeras and give them both take aim and first rank fire, second rank fire?
I'm trying. I'm sure there is a scenario somewhere, but
you know,
I
you
mean,
get the
chances.
two
Like the
plasma
only
guns.
scenarios I can think of where that it could maybe be worth it are the same scenarios where I'm probably just gonna charge you and tank shock you with a Chimera. So I don't really.
Yeah, I guess if you have extra CP, right, and you can get like the plasma guns, getting extra rapid fire from within.
To me, it's more like the movement thing, especially with that strat. You know, being able to like, man, I can't get that angle exactly that I want. All right, I'm gonna move. I mean, because you can do it in coordination, right, with like a transport. Okay, my Chimera and my Dorn move up, move. They're both moving tons extra. The thing gets out, you know, like an officer or something, then you're able to just order both, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like niche scenarios, but it's tools in your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
Because when it comes up, it's like, you know, yeah, sure, 3 times in 10 games, but hey, maybe 1 out of 20 games, that's literally what wins you the game, right? Like those weird little small things. So anything that gives you an extra tool in your toolbox, I'm always going to be a fan of.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those ones where you'll probably play like a dozen games with it, and then by the 10th or 11th game, you'll probably like stop telling your opponent about it because it just doesn't come up, and you're going to be, I'm really sorry. I have this really weird stratagem that I haven't used in the past 2 GTs, but it matters right now.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were gonna kill that whole unit in order to cleanse the objective, but it turns out you didn't. So I'm gonna order this unit duty and honor.
Yeah.
It's
I'm gonna
just
spend
like,
2 CP to make you not be able to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like yeah. So I mean, it could make
Yeah.
a feels bad thing, but but those are the kind of scenarios that I'm thinking about. It
Yeah,
never comes up
absolutely.
until it does.
Cool. All right, let's go
Remember,
ahead.
it's the end of it's any phase. It's not command phase like Inspired
Yeah.
Command, so you can't just do it at the end of the turn to just mess with whatever scoring they have going on.
Yeah. The only downside of that, right, is just being the 6-inch range between the 2 units that you have to have, and it'll come up.
Yeah.
All right, next we got reinforcements. This one is just worse than it used to be. It is still 2 CP, still any phase, but now instead of just any regiment unit, it is one infantry regiment unit that was just destroyed, and you take it and you put it back in reserves. And this is kind of sad. I'll be honest, I think this was a major part of the way that both Robert and I were playing our super heavy list earlier in the edition, where we just had infinite Kazarkin. And, I mean, you can still do it with Kazarkin or Engineers or Scions or whatever, but the strategy died very heavily with the reinforcement nerf from before, and now we can't even do it on things like Sentinels or Rough Riders, which were kind of the backup things I was building my list around after I stopped playing Storm Sword nearly as much. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the next one. We have Flexible Command for 2 CP. In your command phase, any number of Astra Militarum officer units from your army, so you could potentially roll a lot of Voxcasters. The effect, until the end of the phase, your officers can issue orders to regiment units and to squadron units. And David, I'll go ahead and come to you first, because you have been the one talking about laundering orders with this.
Yeah, so this is the other way that you can really launder your orders in this detachment. Like I've built several lists that are tank-heavy lists without a single tank commander, because there's such an efficient path to just turning regiment orders into tank orders. So the biggest use for this one that I've found so far is Creed plus a Cadian command squad with a Voxcaster, because that gives you 4 24-inch orders. You can reduce the cost of the strat because you're targeting Creed's unit. So it costs 1 CP, issue your orders basically wherever you want to, whatever you want. And with the Voxcaster that has to be there on the Cadian squad to glue it all together, this actually costs like half a CP. And for every additional Voxcaster unit you can target, it costs mathematically a little bit less. Hilariously, that includes Scions, because nothing says you can't target them off the board with the strat. It doesn't do anything, but you get a Voxcaster roll off of them, so that's funny. And then, yeah, with this you can have, if you give Grand Strategist to the Cadian command guy, 5 squadron orders off of just Creed's little unit sitting in the middle of the board, yelling at your 5 tanks without having to take a single tank commander. So if you feel that even Rogodorn tanks aren't that good, or you are playing a normal game, you have 1 or 2, and you have to trade those off early because you can't protect your Dorns, you have to play with them. You can still get squadron orders. It's not like the old lists where if you lose them, you lose solar. Now all your tanks are hitting on 4s and 5s. You can just be like, okay, well, break glass, let's do this. The other direction of squadron ordering regiment almost never comes up because regiment orders are usually pretty cheap. But I have once ordered a squad of engineers to move with a Rogodorn tank commander just because I needed to go score some points at the end of the game. Like, when you have the 2 CP and it scores you the points, you do it. But the real use case for this, I think, is getting Creed to become a second tank commander or a third tank commander in a list that really needs it or that has lost its first tank commander.
Nick, anything to add here?
I think it's great. I've been using like just naked Lehman Russ battle tanks with no orders and like some Hydras or Hellhound and whatnot. Just flat 10 move and no funny business, but having access to powering those up a bit. I mean, they're perfectly fine and combined with lethal hits. But they're even better if you can order them with not having to sink a lot of points into like a cornerstone unit that armies that like to build around like big hammers that are looking for targets. If you just don't give targets for those big Marnie's Calgar blobs or whatever it's trying to like dive in and hit something, then it's more efficient list building. So it's a great option to have.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have tons of orders now. Just it's the regiment stuff.
Yeah.
So looking forward to messing around with it.
Robert, you seems like, yep, that's about right. Anything more?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably another good time to mention tank commanders are dead, right? Yeah, they're super dead.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. All right, we'll come to you first then, Robert, for this next one. We got the new Fields of Fire. There's only one CP now. You do it in your shooting phase. It is one regiment unit and one squadron unit from your army that have not yet been selected to shoot. You select one enemy unit, and until the end of the phase, each time your selected regiment and squadron unit makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, improve the AP characteristic of that attack by 1. This is very different than what it was before.
Yeah, I mean, now your Dorn tank commander gets a free +1 AP and maybe unit of Kasherkin, and then they die, and then you just kind of forget about the strat to your next game. But I mean, I think it doesn't require something else to make it go off anymore, right? I think that to me is the most important thing. It's just like, okay, in this scenario, I need this to happen. I don't need to think about it. I have a command point. Here's +1 AP. Right. So I mean, it doesn't, you don't get your entire army shooting at something with +1 AP anymore. Sure. But the amount of scenarios where that comes up isn't as often as people think that it is. Chances are, I mean, the Guard has enough big guns already. I like the way it's set up now.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean, I think especially after the Armor of Contempt nerf, I think that our anti-Armor of Contempt being just like one unit is totally reasonable now that we're not just chewing through the Armor of Contempt. But Nick, I'm going to come to you because I know, David, you're going to tell us all about the weird niche situations where the rules apply in a sec.
I think I like the old one a little better. Just often they have their Primarch out, and this is my go turn. I'm going to slam all the buttons and dump everything into it, which made things mostly reliably die if you had like 6 pieces of armor shooting at a thing. But this one seems fun with Krieg Flamers being AP2, like you toss in a tank and some Flamers into something or whatever units is alongside. Krieg Flamers, I think they're pretty gross. And I don't know if people are going to be excited around playing against those. Like 522 is a really nasty profile into a lot of armies ignoring cover at 18 inches. Why is it 18? Should be 12.
Because it can.
Their army before we even played the.
Hey, we were going to keep our 48-inch las pistol, whether they change the FAQ or not. All right, David. There's I already know some of the weird things about this stratagem where it says what you can and cannot do with it. So, you got any fun tidbits that we should know about this stratagem?
Yes, the first thing, unlike coordinated assault, where they have to like look at each other and be within 6 inches, this has no restrictions. You just pick a squadron, pick a regiment. So you can just pick like, if you have a Dorn over here, some Scions over here, if they both have lines on the same target for whatever reason, you can just go for it. You can also, if you just want to use a Rogel Dorn to get +1 AP and no regiment or even looking at the target, you can just free strat this by targeting the unit that you built with Creed, because you obviously have Creed in your list. Target Creed's unit, they don't fire a single shot, but doesn't matter. Requirements were met. You've done this for 1 CP, down to 0. So that can be solid. If you remember earlier when I mentioned the drop the Scions, drop the Leman Russ battle tank, those guys love +1 AP on both of them. So that's one of the just most powerful uses for this, is take 2 things that both want AP, group them together, send them in. And then the final thing that I've used this a lot with is all of our indirect siege cannons and field ordnance batteries are regiment. So frequently it will be target the Rogel Thorn, target some random artillery piece. And then if the artillery piece needs to finish off the target, it's a little bit better than it was otherwise. And if it doesn't, you just fire it at something else, because this doesn't have the restrictions you see a lot of times of both must shoot the same target. It just says if you do, you get a bonus, but if the Dorn killed it, you just shoot something else. So very frequently I'll target a siege cannon that I have in my list just as basically a another gun glued to a Rogel Dorn that I can fire at the same target as the Dorn. If I don't need to, then I just blow up some little Eldar chaff in the back corner.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite
yeah.
parts about this is that you actually don't have to shoot that unit that you targeted. Like you paint it on the other side, you don't have to shoot it. And sometimes your opponent has to be like, well, I need to pop my Wardens Feel No Pain because you might shoot it. And this is like, okay, well, I'm going to go shoot the Wardens with my indirect that you didn't target now. So that's pretty fun. All right, we got...
Only restriction... Oh, sorry.
no,
There's
go
one
ahead.
restriction to keep in mind, which is you have to have a squadron and a regiment that haven't shot yet. So if you are waiting, make sure that you don't fire all your tanks and be like, oh shit, I want to fire this with a regiment unit, because you'll no longer be able to do that.
Yeah.
It does still require a regiment, a squadron that have not shot this phase.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead. We got another one that is, as far as I can tell, identical to the one we had in the index. It's Inspired Command, 1 CP, your opponent's command phase, 1 Astral Term officer unit from your army. You can issue 1 order as if it were your command phase. This is great. This was a backbone to, I know, the way that Nick was playing his Bulgarian quite a bit throughout the earlier parts of the edition, where it's like, hey, OC2 Bulgarian, very cool. Suddenly you don't have any primary. It's powerful. It's good. It's not quite as good now that we can't order Bulgarian and Ogrin and super heavies and whatever, but it's still, everything you're doing with it before, you can still do. And last one, Robert, I want to hear what your opinion is on Stalwart Protector, because it is 1 CP. It is your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. You target a vehicle unit from your army, and until the end of the phase, that vehicle gives the benefit of cover to any infantry that's behind it.
I don't even know what to say. But, I mean, you already have tables loaded down with cover. I mean, even whenever I was running Bane Blades, I don't think I would use that. It's just like, all right, you're shooting at them, and all right, whatever. Like,
it's even already built into the Bane Blade, and I always forget the rule when I just on the table.
Yeah, it's like, it's just like, so wait, I can take cover for free, and then there's also just a strat with less restrictions that does that and gives them a 6-up invul. Like, why? What scenario do you ever use that strat instead of just normal take cover or go to ground?
That's a very good question, to be honest.
Like, go to ground gives you a 6-up invul and cover and has no restrictions.
Yeah. I think the only time...
You have 4 infantry units behind your Bane Blade, and they can see all of them.
You know what? That is the one scenario.
Yeah.
You got me.
I think the only other time I can see this ever coming up is like, I've already used go to ground on that unit, but now I need cover on this unit as well for some reason. And somehow there's a vehicle there that is in front of our screens. You know, it's a lot of stacking things that need to come up. But overall, I'm going to come back to you, Robert. How do you feel as though the new combined arms detachment compares to what we had in the index already?
It feels like home.
Feels like home. Yeah.
Just like it's you got a couple extra things, couple extra little tricks and stuff. Always like having stuff in your toolbox. Got the customary useless enhancement and the useless strat. I mean, that's always a requirement for all GW detachments. So I mean, yeah, hey, it checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll know how to play it.
Yeah, perfect. David, what are your thoughts? Is this better, worse, about the same, cozy?
It's got a lot more room for tricks. Like, the old detachment didn't have any of the little strat tricks I was talking about. It was basically just reinforce your Kasrkin, fields of fire the important target. Don't think beyond that. This one does have room for you to get to your shooting phase and be like, oh, damn it, I gave the wrong orders at the wrong time, now I'm sad. So I like that. There's like a little bit more skill expression planning. Only big loss is the Vectora. Like, that was sometimes a very fun thing to have to mess with people, either on I think Scions by Linen, or sometimes just if I could put a Vectora on a Dorn tank commander, that would just make people miserable. So that's probably why it's gone. Other than that, I think it's pretty much just a strict upgrade to the old index. Like, it got better in basically every way. We now only have 1 bad strat instead of 3, so like just straight stocks.
Yeah, nice. Nick, what do you feel about this new detachment? It sounds like people are like, yeah, you know, it's a little bit better, but mostly the same.
In my personal, I mean, it's definitely solid. The tricks is for sure more interesting, and the messing around with orders is nice. But as a big fan of Rough Riders and starting guard with about 80 or 90 Rough Riders in my list virtually, There's a bit of a sad trombone.jpg that I'm playing in the background. Because that's my favorite unit in the game by far, just the absurd. I enjoy doing 0 damage to targets and occasionally doing 40 damage to targets, and that's like part of the fun of the variance of the game and not rebuying those units over and over. And
Yeah,
it's been a fun year, so I will miss it, but
makes sense.
looking forward to all the new tricks in the codex.
I do
Anyway,
gotta
so
say,
I'm
Nick,
sure it'll be good.
that's probably one of my favorite things about the couple of times we had a chance to talk. You know, you're generally like pretty straight laced. You're generally like pretty low key most of the things you say. But then you'll just randomly throw in some of the most Zoomer speak sad trombone that JPEG. I really appreciate that. It's just reminding you that you're more than just a hamster in a VR headset. But with that, let's go.
School teacher, so I do interact with the skibbity toilet kids.
That makes sense. I've been seeing more and more of that as the year has gone on. But let's go ahead and start getting into the real fun meat of this. And David, you've played the most of this, so we gotta ask, what does a good competitive list look like in Combined Arms, especially in comparison to what we were playing in the Index?
Sure. So just kind of take the list of like the 30 best units in the codex and just kind of randomly generate a list, and you're fine. So this kind of falls into the like lethals is good. Everything synergizes with everything. It's not like recon where you can build an awful list by not having enough transports, or bridgehead where you can build a bad list by not taking scions. Um, that being said, like some of the specific combos I think take us from like 3-2 to 5-0ing events. Creed always. I think if you don't put Creed in, you're wrong. I've been liking Creed a lot with 20 Cadians and a 5-man command squad. It gives you kind of like that Nemo-style Krieg brick. It's not as durable, but it's still really durable, and regrowing models plus sticky is one of the most horrifying things in the game for messing with my opponents. You can do all the tricks you could do with the Krieg brick, but if you do it once, you've then stickied the middle objective, and then you just pull back and say like, okay, go for it. And you're issuing 4 to 5 orders at 24-inch range with the ability to adjust what they are. And that unit becomes a really good vector for coordinated action because they have 2 orders on them, so you can be sharing out just an absurd number of orders to an absurd number of your units. 1 to 2 Rogaldorn tank commanders feels pretty needed. I've been playing with 1 plus Grand Strategist, but I wouldn't hate 2. Couple Lehman Russ battle tanks, couple exterminators. Engineers are solid. They don't really benefit a ton from anything we've got going on here, but they just do good stuff for cheap. Clifton Fight Me, they're better than Catachans as 5-mans because they actually do stuff instead of just dying places. So yeah, a couple engineers, a couple artillery pieces. Like the siege cannon, I think, is probably the highest synergy because it loves the AP stacking we've already got going on, but you wouldn't be wrong if you put some field ordnance batteries or mortars in. Haven't been thinking you need Hellhounds as much in this because we have Fields of Fire, which kind of does what a Hellhound does, with like giving you +1 AP is basically ignores cover. But I don't hate them. Like put some Hellhounds in, put some Exterminators, whatever random tank package you feel is best. The biggest thing that I waffle between is Scout Sentinels, yes or no. And it basically depends on how many reroll hits you have in other places. So if you're heavy Hydra Lehman Russ battle tank, you probably don't need Sentinels. If you're on basically anything else, you really want those Scout Sentinels because reroll 1s and lethals is just like perfect synergy. You want
Yeah.
to get 6s. This lets you reroll into 6s. Even new Scions really love a Scout Sentinel because they're not hitting on 3s with reroll hits. They're hitting on 3s with reroll wounds. So you want to get them that hit roll buff. But yeah, realistically, as long as you're not playing bad units in your combined arms list, I'm not going to have a lot to say. Because you've probably done it well as long as you have about the right number of orders and about the right distribution of small stuff to kill small stuff, big stuff to kill big stuff.
Fair. All right, Nick. I mean, Nick, what would you change about this? It sounds very different than the combined regiment stuff that you were doing in the Index.
I do like the engineers a lot more in combined, just because run them forward, stand on objective, flip it to OC10 with the inspired on their turn is a healthy amount, and like they're sometimes the mortals pop off, so that's nice. And I mean, doing actions and all that. Still probably similar-ish. Definitely Lehman Russ battle tanks. I don't think there's a better feeling than overwatching with one of those and just picking up an entire unit. Like, oh, here's your land raider that touched an objective, and now it's gone because I rolled a couple 6s on Meltas. So That's really hard for people to play around, and that's the one negative is not having reroll scions anymore in terms of the lethals, so you can't like ingress and stage, and it's like I'm gonna murder this unit when you declare your charge, so you're more vulnerable. Like there's not enough tricks. I mean, it comes up every so often, but I guess not anymore. No, it seems the same old. Lethal hits are good,
Yeah.
and the more dice you throw at your opponents, the more often they're going to connect. So I think list building is going to be pretty similar for me in terms of
Yeah.
combined.
I-
But definitely going to be messing around with the other stuff for a while.
Are you still on like the Ogre and Chimera buses, or what are those shifting to?
Not at the moment. I've been trying like the 20. I've been completely missing out on the 20-man Krieg thing with the Marshal. Like that's just recent tournaments. Like, oh, I should have been running this for a while.
We all have
It's
that.
stupid.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, I think it's what 67 data sheets now. Like the variety in guard builds is through the roof. Like every unit, like the data sheets are perfectly serviceable without rules. Like we all had that experience at the start of, like about a year ago, right? Like just playing good sheets with kind of mecha rules when it was like stationary lethal hits. So it all still does work. It's just finding what's going to work in like the Slaanesh demons Eldar nonsense type meta that's coming around the horizon, because that's why I like mechanized, or not mechanized, Hammer of the Emperor, because all the squishy Eldar idiots that are hiding behind walls, they don't like Tauroxes in the face.
That's true. Well, let's go ahead and go over to Robert, because Robert, I think the list that I remember you playing in the Index is probably going to be the least recognizable to anybody who is going to be starting off with the Codex, because Super Heavies are dead, the Endless Bolgren are dead, Kazarkin are dead. What has Combined been looking like in your mind now that we're moving over to an entirely new era of the Guard?
Well, I feel kind of bad to say I'm copying everybody else's answers, but yeah, I mean, like, and I truly actually don't think Casterkin are necessarily dead. I've been playing with them.
I think, yeah, they're
a
definitely
lot-
good still. Yeah.
I think they still have a lot of utility. But yeah, I mean, just grab the best data sheets. You can basically just randomly generate stuff, and you're probably gonna do okay. But there are definitely like if you plan for using some of these tricks, right, with that the strats provide you with, um, it'll you'll feel the benefits, right? Again, said it before, I'll say it again. I'm a huge fan of toolbox armies, and I love watching Guard finally get their toolbox a little filled up, right? Anything that can allow you to take advantage of a specific instance, no matter how niche it is always going to be good in my book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Leman Russ battle tanks take advantage of the lethal hits. Anything that's going to give you a whole lot of shots, always going to be good. So
I've got a funny challenge for you then. So let's go ahead and take David's theoretical. We'll take the top 15 to 20 data sheets in Guard, whatever you think those top 15 to 20 are. We give it to ChatGPT and say, generate me 2,000 points of these data sheets. How well do you think you could do at a GT with whatever list it spits out?
You get DQ'd because ChatGPT doesn't know math.
We could. I had 6,000 points.
all right. We take the first 2,000 points, then it spits out. Well, how well do you guys think you could actually do with that?
You could 4-1 something pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. Nick, what do you think?
The tool for that again. Like, I wrote it for the old. For the
He
index.
did, yeah.
Write it for the codex.
Nick, are we that good that
honestly,
you could 4-1?
I think 4-1 is legit, like, very doable.
Yeah, but there's a lot of, I mean, outside of the Valkyrie, there's not a lot of like trash in the codex, right? Also,
I mean,
why
tank
is the Valkyrie
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, there's a lot of good data sheets. Whenever I explain Guard to people, especially like before the Codex came out, it was like, all right, so what does your army do? It's like, well, I don't really have stratagems. I'm going to be using grenade and smoke and rapid ingress and sometimes tank shock.
one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be using the really good ones from the core rules, and then I'm going to throw really efficient data sheets at you, and it's like, okay, makes sense to me, and I feel like that has.
It's a very simple strategy, but if you just run the numbers, like if you're overwatching with battle tanks or scions, you're getting 30 to 50 expected wounds through on like average targets, then 15 or 12 to 15 from grenades, and another 12 to 15 from like tank shocks. And if you're not doing anything else, like the other army is like out of like half of their wounds are gone already through strat use, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about scoring and whatnot if they just don't have models left.
That's true. Now, I'm actually going to come right on back to you, Nick, because I know you had a lot of strong opinions on the strat usage during the index. How do you think you're planning to be budgeting CP in the combined arms detachment now in comparison to how you were before? Is it still mostly core stratagems, or are you going to be spending a little bit more on the ones that we have in our index?
Honestly, like there's if they come up and I can score points off of like sharing orders. I mean, Inspired Command is excellent, especially through Creed, like making it free, so it's reliably there. No more Hive Tyrant Creed, which is good because that was nonsense. I don't understand why that was a thing for two like balanced slates. That's Hive Tyrant at 55 points or a Gilliman's. It's just whatever. But still having access to that is great for messing with primary. But it's still probably just especially Overwatching. Overwatch and combined is glorious. Grenades are awesome, but I mean, you have your engineers to do that for free if you're positioning well. Tank shocks are great. I don't know if I want Hydras anymore. I mean, 95 is okay. I miss my 70-point Chimeras. Those are my favorite. But apparently, I can play a lot faster if I don't have 70-point Chimeras.
You just have an extra 60 points in your list. Or no, 60 fewer points, yeah.
The occasional Fields of Fire and the other strats I probably won't remember, because I think 3 of the strats in the index I never actually used, so less mental space to take. I did the -1 hit like twice, I think. So
yeah. What about you, Robert? I mean, just using stratagems in the index versus using them in this detachment.
I mean, you're gonna. It comes down to points, right? Because almost all of the strats looking at them are like, all right, here's the niche scenario. It slaps you in the face, you do it there, and then like, all right, so I'm not going to grenade or pop smoke this turn. Got it, right? Otherwise, you're still going to throw a grenade, right?
It's good.
I mean, to be fair, now we got engineers, so you're doing that for free. So I guess you actually do. I mean, if you choose to go and bring engineers, but otherwise, I mean, I love that idea of using flexible command to just free up a whole bunch of points, still bring Creed, and just order all your tanks squadron orders, right? Without bringing a single tank commander. That can actually open up a ton of points. So, I mean, otherwise, though, I think you're going to end up using a lot of the same.
Yeah, a lot of the same. David, what's your experience been? Are you still using mostly core strats?
I think the experience has been a little bit different in that most of the games end up playing a lot more carefully now, so you don't really engage for the first turn or two, and you build up that CP bank to where you're sitting on like 7, and then you just fire 7 strats at them. You're grenading, tank shocking, reinforcing something, using all your strats, and when you just get to spend all your CP in one turn, it's incredible because you can actually get value out of all of it. So in those slower games, when you go significantly harder. And if you're playing calm, or if you're playing like a more calm measure, like over the course of multiple turns game, you're spending what, like your 2 you gain, 1 free from Creed, a Voxcaster 1, because we're doing enough strats, you're almost always Voxcastering for free, and then a grenade. So you're spending like 5 CP a turn. So you're spending 25 in a game, assuming you keep your engineers alive. You can do whatever you want to. CP just flows freely as long as you keep your engineers safe. And even if you lose your engineers, then you just like coordinate action slightly less.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
I'm just
yeah.
throwing CP wherever I have a problem, and it doesn't feel like I'm running low on them.
Because I know back in the index, I generally budgeted because I was usually running solar in almost all of my combined regiment lists, and I would generally budget like, okay, so I'm going to spend 2 on reinforcements. I should budget 2 for like the once per game fields of fire that I need to throw out, and we got like 3 grenades, like 2 tank shocks, 1 rapid ingress, and that's like 10 or 11-ish right there, and then the rest of it was kind of discretionary, right? But it sounds like, in general, you guys are generally saying that everything is kind of discretionary in the new codex, right? You just do it as they arise instead of them being like a core part of like, this is how I'm planning to spend my CP, grenade every turn, Overwatch every turn, and then go from there. Am I hitting the nail on the head?
That sounds about right. I have
Yeah.
also noticed reinforcements has been a lot less valuable. Like there's not those 10 Rough Riders that can flip a game when you reinforcement them anymore, or like the giant Scion bricks. This I've been running a lot more like MSU smaller stuff, and you use it to get back some engineers on turn 3, so you can do something with them turn 4. So you don't have to keep that 2 in your back pocket always, because you're not looking for like that one game-changing reinforcement. You're just kind of like, you killed some engineers. Do I want some engineers back? Sure, I have the CP. I'm not planning on doing something with it. And if instead you can throw a grenade and tank shock with those 2 CP, you just do it and accept that you'll instead get back some like 5 Scions somewhere else down the line. You're not doing the like, I need to cycle Kasserkin every turn, or I need to always be ready to get the horses back.
Fair enough. Robert, Nick, anything to add?
I agree with that. There's a lot of games where I just never even reinforce, and sometimes that 5-man Scions is more valuable for the actual scoring at the end of the game than like 10 Rough Riders or whatnot. It's like, you want the value, but points win, so having options available is the way to go.
Yeah, I won a game in a team tournament because I used reinforcements on a unit of mortars. So
I want to hear that story. How did that happen?
Oh yeah, that was stupid. It's just like one of those. It was against World Eaters, ironically, and which I normally never struggle with. But no, Angron just made every single 4-up imaginable, and then was sitting there on my home objective, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess all right. It's like turn bottom of 4, kills the mortars. I'm like, I got CP, why not reinforcements? And then I draw established locus and behind enemy line. So I'm just like, all right, cool.
And never forget that you can, if you have like 1 Scion left in combat, you can choose to fall him back over the enemy, lose him to the desperate breakout, reinforce him, and drop him that same turn to do whatever. So it still has all the tricks it always had, but you don't have to look for them, they just kind of appear.
If you really need it, you can even re-roll that desperate escape test.
Spend 3 CP, get this 5 Scions back.
Re-roll.
That's so funny. That's a good one. I have always loved when someone's like, I'm going to Overwatch that thing. He's like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. It's like, okay. They kill it. It's like, okay. I'm going to set it up in exactly the same spot. Here it is again, second time. They're like, huh. All right, I traded up a CP, that's fine. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about some of the fun stuff that's left in this. What are some units, starting with you, Robert, what are some units that you would take in this detachment that you wouldn't really consider taking them in another detachment?
I don't. I mean, with lethal hits, it just makes stuff that you would even normally take just slightly better, right? So it's hard to say any particular unit. I mean, because even in other detachments, like I probably am not going to bring like a Punisher, right? But a Punisher could actually maybe do something in this detachment. That doesn't mean I'm going to bring it,
but you'd consider it.
It's better, right? So it just cranks everything up a little bit, right? So anything that's going to give you more shots is always going to be better. Like your Chimeras are now worth actually shooting at vehicles, because why not? Maybe your heavy bolter will get a lethal and do 2 damage to something when it never had any business doing that at all, right? So I mean, it gives you more diversity in targets with all of your ancillary weapons on your vehicles. But for
so maybe we can rephrase this then to be a little bit more interesting, right? Because I think the Chimera is a perfect example of a unit that 85 points is not even really worth considering in mechanized. Like, it's okay in mechanized, but in combined arms, it might be worth those 85 points. Are there any other units that are kind of like that across our list of data sheets that you are like questionable, like really borderline, but suddenly are worth the points that they have in this detachment?
I mean, like, Torox Primes give you reroll hits now. Load that thing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, let's go, right?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to give you a good answer. I'm
Yeah.
racking my brain.
It's all right. I mean, Nick, I know you were mentioning like maybe Hydras at 95. Are they like only playable in combined arms, or are they still just like not quite worth it?
They're fine. They're not as exciting. I mean, it's just cheap garbage boxes that take up space and require real guns to remove. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of those options. Like Chimera was my go-to. I think they were still better than Hydras before with the what was it, 135 or the 130 points. Like Ogre in Battle Box was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
I was like, I don't know
like
what 130 point Chimera you're playing.
Oh, it was. I've killed every Primarch with like Ogre and Chimeras like multiple times, which was just a lot of fun. But lethal, I mean, everything works as long as it's not abhuman. So just the more dice you have to throw at your opponent's models, the more often you'll avoid variance issues. So whatever gives you the most was generally the best, right?
Fair enough. David?
Yeah, and the weaker the gun, the more value you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
So like, okay, yeah, I'll why not? I'll have the Catechin squad go ahead and shoot at your 8-bound, right? Oh, cool! I killed one.
Woohoo!
That shouldn't have happened, right? But it did, right? Because I got lethal hits.
Yeah.
So, but you're gonna bring those anyway, so it didn't really.
Yeah.
So any particular unit that I would bring in this outside of another one, like I'm still gonna have a Dorn commander in another list.
Yeah.
Even without lethal hits, right? So
everything's just a little bit better. Fair enough. Well, overall, then, gentlemen, it sounds like we've kind of hit a spot.
Got a couple.
Oh, okay. We got the spicy takes.
Yeah. Lehman Russ Battle Tank, only good in this. Fight me.
Wow, that's spicy. Okay.
It wants lethals. It's strength 10s and 9s. It needs lethals to actually hurt anything. Scout Sentinels go from, I think, below the line, where like they're solid, but there's better things to do with 55 points, to above the line, because you really want that reroll hits buff. And then Creed comes everywhere. You always take Creed, obviously, but I think the Creed plus Command Squad plus 10 to 20 guys only really sees its value here. Because you're only getting value out of that when you're flexible commanding them. You're not getting as much value when you're like, just ordering actual regiment units. Maybe in Recon, but like you're not going to take that anywhere other than here where you're trying to get flexible command off. So those are my 3 picks to actually start a fight.
Nick, I mean, he's shit talking your Lehman Russes. Are you just gonna let him do that?
No, I completely agree. Lehman Russ battle tanks are the goat in this detachment, and that's why. I mean, I missed out on a while. I was just like, oh, I should actually be running these because I never actually read the full rules because I'm an idiot. And it said reroll hits with everything. It's like, wait a minute.
Wait, you thought they were good when it was only rerolling the main gun?
No, I just didn't use them. I think when the lethal hits came, I was just on the Ogren Chimeras, and I was using like an Exterminator and like a Tank Commander to like do some like buffing. But someone pointed out as reroll everything in one of the chats, and I was like, oh, yep, I'm doing this immediately, and I never like looked back.
Yeah.
It's like plus it's just cool, right?
Yeah.
Just regular Lehman Russ battle tank with the main barrel.
El Clasico. Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the Discords in general. Is just like you always, you don't always learn something, but every now and then someone will say something, and it'll be from someone that you respect, and you're like, I thought this was bad. What? Why are they saying this? It's like, Scions are good? Why? Why would Scions be good? But anyway.
What are Storm Swords doing in Texas? What
it's all their custom terrain down there, right, Robert?
No, they work on all terrain, damn it.
Well, let's go ahead.
You don't need to fit if I can see you.
That's true.
The amount of people, I'm like, no, but it doesn't fit. I don't care if it doesn't fit.
I could see that objective, and I could see that objective. That's all I needed to do. All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and start talking about the other new detachment, because this is one that a lot of people have generally categorized as a little bit worse, right? Most people know Bridgehead absolutely broken. Combined arms still very good. Mechanized probably still very good. Recon and Siege, I've heard differing opinions from different people, but Hammer of the Emperor has been mostly lambasted by the community as maybe the Crusade only. So let's go ahead and talk about that one. We'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll take a little bit more time going through all of the rules in here, and then we can come back and start talking about what we might actually do with this if we were trying to win tournaments. So, starting off with our detachment roll, we'll come to David first. We got Iron Tread. Each time a squadron unit from your army advances, do not make an advance roll for it. Just add 6. Your unit can move within engagement range of enemy models, but cannot end that move within engagement range of enemy models.
Yeah, so first off, rules discussion that's going to happen is, does move within engagement range mean over them? I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but it like slightly makes move blocking worse, but it doesn't like let you just drive over people. So don't try and do that. We'll all judge you. Moving 6 is good. I'm probably the wrong person for this because I'm very much the like slow crawl kill people player, but I can acknowledge that like when you need to get a tank in a place, moving it 6 is good. Um, gonna jump ahead slightly. If we didn't have an advance and shoot strat in this detachment, I would think this is atrocious. We do, so you can still drive 6, shoot something. And we also have advance and get out, so you can drive 6 and chuck Tin Casterkin out of a Torox.
Yeah.
Without those two abilities, this is unplayable. With it, yeah, this is a solid thing for scoring points with, but as I'm going to be saying a lot in the review of Hammer the Emperor, what if your tanks just had lethals instead, though? Like, that just seems better. I'm sure Nick is going to like this way more than I do, though.
Yeah,
Seems
Nick,
like
I
what he
mean,
enjoys.
we're again talking, he's talking about your detachment as though it's trash. Are you going to respond to that at all?
Well, relative to the options available in Combined or Bridge, it definitely is not at the same level. It's like when you run into heavy monsters and vehicles, guard anti-tank without lethals is kind of mediocre. Like the Exterminator is effectively strength 12, which is fine, but AP, you're running into AP issues. You could solve that with being within 12 inches, but you generally don't really want to be there early on in the first place because you're losing those models. I do like auto 6 everything turn 1 to optimize staging positions, because on at least WTC, you're not reaching like safe harbor zones or getting wholly within terrain footprints, so you can just like peek out the following turn. So it's the trade-off versus lethality versus optimal positioning. But I think it's more about using transports, like 2 CP Torox through walls is hitting your secondaries like almost always. Like they touch something on a home objective, there's an exposed character. Like that's a lot of mental stress that you're putting on your opponent, and the more decisions and stuff they have to play around, the easier it is for you if you could just like unga bunga and like, well, you have to remember I have warp spiders. Like if I have a Baneblade or a Doom Hammer or whatever, like it can go like 18 inches. Like here it is. Hello. Like enjoy. And that's really challenging to position well against. And like even top players will like leave exploitable pockets on the map. So that is the main strength. The detachment would be fun, or like a bit better if you can just ignore models and whatnot, because screening will happen, of course. But that's a lot of space, and there's a lot of armies that don't have that many resources too. Like some lists still are running like 2 or 3 chaff scoring units, and if you can drive your garbage tanks, like or your Torox, jump your Casterpin out, like pop 2 scoring units that are within proximity of each other or nearby, like that's a big change in how the rest of the game is going to play out. Like I've had quite a few games against like Necron players, like here's my Doomsday Arcs, like, well, I killed all your Tomb Blades and like little flayed ones, and now you have to use real pieces to play the game with, and like the game's sometimes over on turn 1. Like it cascades down, right?
Yeah. Now, Robert, I see you're chomping at the bit. You had something you wanted to jump in with.
I was, but never mind.
All right.
I read it wrong and I was like super excited and like, oh no, you can do Baneblade 21 inches. You
Oh.
can't. No move.
No, move.
But they did add
That'll be
Bane Blades is
unfortunate.
12 inches now instead of 10.
Bane
Yeah.
Blades need towering and regiment or squadron. I don't know what. Just give it to us.
Yeah, I don't even know if they need squadron so much as they just need the ability to be ordered at all. But, maybe there's a special thing where Lord Solar can also order super heavies. But let's go ahead and talk about the enhancements. I'm going to read them through really quick, and then I'm going to come to Robert first so he can choose which ones of them he wants to talk about. So first one, we have Calm Under Fire. You have to Vehicle Officer. Once per turn after you issue an order to a squadron unit from your army, you can issue the same order to another squadron unit from your army. This is basically Grand Strategist, but technically has a little bit of extra T's and C's. We have Indomitable Steed, Vehicle Officer model only. You have Feel No Pain 6+. Not bad. Regimental Banner, Vehicle Officer model only. You're going to see a trend in this. Add 3 to the bearer's objective control characteristic. And lastly, we have Veteran Crew, Vehicle Officer model only. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes a ranged attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. I mean, Robert, these all sound fine.
I guess. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Feel No Pain. If it was a 5-up, that'd be great. But it's a 6-up. But just looking at them, it seems like a lot of them are almost there, right? But they're just not quite there. Like OC3. Okay, 2 guardsmen can do that, right? Like that. So all right, why am I dropping points on that? 6-up, Feel No Pain. It's kind of like, okay. It's kind of like, with Bulgrin, I wasn't relying on it. It was cool when it happened, though.
Yeah.
Right? But, yeah, and then even with issuing another order, it has to be the same order. It's not, so it's a worse Grand Strategist. And then...
It does still, since a lot of our officers have 2 orders, you do still get, like, you issue 1 move, 2 take aims, or 2 move, 1 take aims. So you don't have to do, like, all 3 of the things. It's a little more flexible, but, yeah, like, I don't think you're going to issue too many orders that aren't move, and take aim onto your Dorns and Russes in this list, so I don't think it's even that, like, it's annoying they added words to make it worse than Grand Strategist, but I don't think it is in any, like, practical way.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
I think the one I'm actually most excited about in this, gentleman, is Veteran Crew, the reroll hit rolls of 1. And the main reason why I like this is because you put on a Rogaldorn Tank Commander, which already has the built-in reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, 1 damage. And, hitting on 3s is, 66% hit rate. Hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, you're getting like 75% hit rate, which is basically like hitting on 1.5s. Which is pretty good, especially when you have that 1 extra hit reroll that's already built in there. And I think it's part of why I feel like Rogaldorn Tank Commanders and Rogaldorns in general have jumped up in like my valuation of them, because we have things like just make it reroll 1s, or we have stratagems that you can just target one thing all at once. And I don't remember how many points Veteran Crew is off the top of my head. If it's like 15 points,
it's 20.
It's 20. It's 20.
I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to hear what number you say.
Yeah, that's like right on the edge of like, if I can't upgrade like Catachan to engineers or something, then I'll probably end up in a list. But it's like right on the edge of potentially being good. All right.
But also a Scout Sentinel's 55 and is a whole unit and does the same thing wherever you want it. So like,
my Scout Sentinels are dead by the end of turn 1, so it's okay. They do my area denial and then they die. All right, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about the stratagems. And David, I know you're gonna have a hot take on this one. We got final hour. Your command phase. I don't know why it's in your command phase. Target 1 squadron unit from your army that is below half strength, excluding officer units. Until the end of your battle round, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit, excluding one-shot weapons, have hazardous. And each time a model in your unit makes a ranged attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to ballistic skill and to the hit roll.
This, at every option, like, they had the ability to make a cool way to break this, and they're just like, oh, we can't let them do that. So that, it just makes me sad in like so many ways. No officers, so you can't use this to double shoot your tank commanders with the like, do this, shoot on death, go crazy. it's neat that it gives them hazardous. It's like a funny, flavorful thing, but I don't love it. You only ignore ballistic and hit roll, so you can't like just punch damage through Catons or Avatars of Cain, like any of the half damage stuff. And then yeah, it's just like I think the only time you use this is when they are knocked so far down that they are hitting on fives, and so you know that they're gonna like have a bunch of negatives. And then this is +1 to your ballistic skill effectively, and ignores smoke for 1 CP, which is fine.
Yeah.
But also like your big hitters are I think your Roguelorn tank commanders in this list, so it's also not working on what I think are going to be your 3 primary damage dealers in a list like this. So it's only working on if you fall all the way down to the 4th Rogueldorn, where you're taking a regular one, or one of the Lehman Russ variants. Or I guess no, it's squadron only. You can't even use this on Bane Blades. Oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah. Nick, Robert, is there what do we need to like make this stratagem like happen more than once every 4th GT?
So I think it's a very niche scenario, which I actually kind of like it.
Oh, okay.
Whenever you want to kill your own thing, right? You're wrapped. You know it's gonna die anyway. Hey, you know what? I can get one more half decent shot out of this thing, and then pray to God I roll the hazardous to kill it, so that the rest of my army can shoot at everything it's currently engaged with. Right? So that's really the only scenario I can think of.
There's another one. End of like you have bottom of 4 and they haven't drawn Bring It Down, and you try to kill your own tank.
That is true. That is true.
Just like if it cause them to auto explode if they died to hazardous, like then it's cool. You can like try and detonate your Dorn.
That would be very good.
No,
yeah.
It's just like how many guns does the Dorn have? Like 7 or 8.
8.
So it's a reasonable chance of dealing 3 to 6 mortal wounds to your own tank, and it gets to shoot out of combat as though it weren't in combat at full bracket.
I do like the thing that Robert brought up where it's like it's kind of a way to just kill yourself out of a combat, right? And if you get caught in a situation where you can't fall back against like Exalted 8-bound, or there's something in Marines that has a similar rule, and you can't fall back, that can like be game ending if it happens to be the wrong unit in the wrong spot, where suddenly it's like, oh well, you're going to kill me on my turn and then you're going to have another turn of movement. That can be really bad. This does help alleviate that problem, but I do want to give a quick story as to one of the things that Nick said, where you kill your own vehicle in order to deny Bring It Down. I recently had a game, I don't remember what it was against, but they had Bring It Down. They drew it in top of 1 and I had bottom of 1, and he was setting up such that I needed to bring out like 4 tanks in order to like kill everything that he had shown, but I also had a Cyclops. And so instead of letting him have a turn where he gets to swing into 3 or 4 Lehman Russes, I just drove a Cyclops at him. It's like, I'm going to force you to take the 2 instead of getting the potential 6 on Bring It Down on your next turn.
That's pretty good.
That's actually pretty filthy.
Yeah. He was, I remember my opponent was very just like, huh, I guess you can do that. That was very funny. All right, let's go ahead and get into our next one. We have Blazing Advance, and Robert, I know you're sad about this one already. It is your movement phase just after a squadron unit from your army advances, and you target that squadron unit until the end of the turn. Your unit is able to shoot in a turn in which it advanced. You can't do this with our babies.
I mean, I guess it's nice. It's especially stacking it with busting through walls, but it feels like they almost got like the detachment ability in this strat like messed up. It should have been switched the other way around. Like give me an auto 6 strat and just let everything else advance and shoot. Right? Like give me that, and now we're cooking with oil. But it's like, all right, so my whole thing is built around auto advancing 6, but only 1 unit can do anything really with that. So
yeah, I mean, Nick, this seems okay to me, right? This seems like the core thing where you can take people by surprise. It's like, haha, suddenly my Dorn is moving 19 inches and is going to shoot you.
Yeah, but turn one stage. It's more for like your Torax YOLOs through walls and then an extra CP. So Solar's kind of
Yeah.
you probably need Solar, but like your guys jump out, do something, and the Torax is like looking for beans with focus or something. So again, it's just the threat of it is significantly more valuable than this is going to end up because you can do this anywhere. So those guys staging behind that wall are not safe if there's a tank well within 19 inches of them, right? So I guess 17 because you're like rotating through whatever their screens are and stuff. So
Yeah.
the threat does the more mental strain you're putting on their decision making, the easier your games are being. So it's nice to have available. You're definitely going to use it a couple times a game, maybe once or twice with.
Yep.
It's just it's good.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than the other one I immediately forgot about.
That's all right. All right, David. Yeah, I mean, you had something.
I was just curious what looking for beans meant. Whatever phrase that was. What generation is that from?
The good old days. Times are tougher.
You have to go rooting around. All right, let's get our next one. It's tactical draw 1 CP. I mean, it's the same as the other one, except instead of advancing, it's falling back. I mean, good. Just generically good stratagem. I don't think we need to.
Never had it before.
We haven't had it before. I don't think we need to really dive into why this is good because we have a tank. We can fall it back, and now we can shoot it. It's good. Yeah, cool. Next, we got Crash Through, which is the other really interesting one. And Crash Through, your movement phase, your charge phase. One Astro-Military vehicle unit from your army that has not been selected to move or charge. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit makes a normal, advance, or charge move, it can move horizontally through terrain features as if they were not there. And Nick, I'm going to come back to you because one of the first things I noticed about this is it does not say enemy models.
Yeah. Not as good as it could be, but still good enough.
Yeah.
You have large numbers on the movement characteristics on the vehicles. It's like Torax Go. It's what it's there for. It's already got the built-in like get out after advancing. So
yeah,
looking forward to messing around with the scoring units. There's a lot of utility built into it. They're nice and small. They're still relatively resilient for their price point. I mean, they're very resilient for their price point compared to similar cheap vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's awesome.
Fair enough.
And it's gonna win games because people forgot it. Well, not forget about it. They're gonna be reminding people, but like it's hard to play around, and you can't proactively wall things effectively by putting like an idiot or two in a predetermined driving lane. So.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to come to the next one. And Robert, I think I already know what you're going to say about this one. Because Furious Cannonade, 1 CP your shooting phase, you get a squadron unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot until the end of the phase. Each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets a unit within 12 inches, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. And Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you're already thinking, wait, don't we have this stratagem in Combined Arms?
Yeah, except it has more limitations. So that's pretty dope. That was cool, and it's only one unit instead of squadron and regiment. And
yeah, where are my AP1 las guns that come along with it?
No, amazing, fantastic, great.
Yeah, I mean it's good. It is just very good. This is good in conjunction with Crash Through and Blazing Advance, right? You just like put a door in somewhere cool and you go bang. All right, lastly, we have the one that was stolen from the index, and 2 CP, your punching phase, just for an enemy unit selected as targets. You pick one of your vehicles and you subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of those attacks. And this is, I'll just go ahead and do this one. This is the same as it was in the index. It would come up like once a GT when you have someone's like, oh hey, they're shooting a lot of autocannons and or a lot of plasma at my tank. Let's half the damage output of those things. And it doesn't come up that often, but when it does, it is fairly impactful. And David, I'll go ahead and come to you first. I feel like just about everything in the hammer is fine, right? Like everything is okay. and I think the only big question about this is why would we play this when combined arms exists?
Okay, so hear me out. If someone wants to send me 5 more Dorns, and you put 6 Rogel Dorns in a list, you can drive a Dorn through a wall and shoot with it every turn, and still have a Dorn left over. And I think 6 Dorns in Canis Rex is exactly 2,000 points, or like pretty close to it. So that's what this is for.
Fair. I mean, Nick, you've been the one who's been defending this one the most. You're the only person who told me I want to talk about Hammer of the Emperor. Why are we going to play this one instead of combined arms?
It's all about the Torox. So start there. Tanks are like the extra bit on top because you're not really buffing the tanks a ton. So you're playing kind of naked guard with more mobility, but the mobility can reach Eldar levels or faster. And people don't, well, not new Eldar because the battle stuff is insane. But that's a lot of skill expression that it gives you. And you don't really have to kill everything all the time, and you have enough dice to throw at stuff that things will still die. Just solving like the tank issue, but again, you have Kasserkin and engineers that can go where they want generally, so you can just, if you're good at rolling dice and you don't roll below 3s on the mines, then you're fine. But just be better at rolling dice. And it's the secondary play that, like, you're consistently going to be scoring high because it's really hard to stop you from not, like, you have to have a solid, like, physical screen of models to prevent the Toraxes from sneaking in from where they want to go.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of turn 1s and 2s that you're not going to be missing anymore if you're staging correctly. And since you're generally going to be running Solar because you want to be having CP access, like, you don't really have a good farm method for Creed to fire out Vox casters and whatnot. So it should be consistent for scoring. I just don't know in the context of like shifting metas. If Eldar's running rampant, then it's going to be pretty decent, depending on if they're all loaded up in wave serpents or not. If they're more on foot, then feels pretty good because they really don't like Kasserkin in their face.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna come to Robert next, and then we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. Let's take this detachment. What is your optimal or near optimal like breakdown of tanks and other vehicles that you're gonna be bringing in this?
Well, now that I just found out that 6 Dorns and the Canis Rex is 1965, I might have a new answer. But no, I mean,
Sorry,
like,
Texas.
yeah, I'm gonna blame you. No, I mean, yeah, you have to have transports to play the secondary game. I 100% agree with that point. And the capability to go so fast and still be able to hit hard, right? I say hit hard, really hit hard into their scoring units, right? The units that, all their trash. This unit, this detachment will just pick up all of your opponent's trash, and there's nothing they can really do about it, right? I mean, combined is going to get a lot better damage output out of a lot of the units that this detachment wants to tank, but it does give you a lot more movement flexibility. So I do totally agree with those points. But in order to really take advantage of it, right, like, still got to kill stuff at the end of the day, right? And demolishers just aren't as good as they used to be. And even then, they're still casino cannons. Dorns don't have lethal hits, and I guess you can only get that +1 AP if you're within 12, right? So it requires you to get up close and personal really quick, and it has the capability of doing that. But against a lot of builds out there, you're going to end up just getting tied up really fast. I mean, I would charge all my guardsmen into all the tanks every chance I got. Right? It's like, all right, cool. One can fall back and shoot. At what? Everything's in combat, right? Um. So. Um. Yeah, I mean, it likes tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Bring tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
all the
David,
strats are built around it.
it seems like this detachment, it likes tanks, but it doesn't love tanks. You know, they're in the friend zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a funny list that I was messing around with of like 6 Toroxes, 3 Engineer, 3 Kasserkin, and you just mortal wound stuff, and like that backed up by as many Rogaldorn tank commanders as you can fit. I don't know the exact points, but I think that's getting pretty close. You maybe don't then have to play Solar, but you still might want to. And you just kind of drive guys in Dorn's places. There's maybe something there for like teams causing weird problems, but I think any list you show me that you built for Hammer the Emperor, I can just change the top line to combined arms, and it went up like 1 win at a GT. If you show me a 3-2 Hammer list and I change it to combined arms, it's now a 4-1 list because they want all the same units, and combined arms just makes those units better.
All right, Nick, I'll let you respond to that first, but then I want to come back to you. Is like, what is the list that you think is actually looking pretty spicy from Hammer?
I think that's generally correct. Just +1 to wounds, like math and wise for combine is really good. Your Overwatch is just game changing and game winning in situations where you remove something trying to touch an objective. It really is meta dependent. If you expect more squishy targets hiding behind walls, and also the terrain you're playing on, like GW is quite different than
Yeah.
W2C.
That's a
or,
question for you then.
UTC.
Do you think that Hammer the Emperor is going to be better on WTC or on Games Workshop?
WTC, pretty sure. There's just more pockets to hide, more like edges of the board cut off from firing lanes with the area terrain touching, and more distance you need to travel to get like optimal firing lanes. Just it, I don't know. It's definitely not as good as Bridge and Combined, but it's got potential. It just really, if the rule was the other way around, like advance, your Russes can advance and shoot, and then you pay the CP for the auto 6.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet, but then also that'd probably be too silly because that's also a lot of potential damage coming your way.
Totally
and,
fair.
People generally don't like those kinds of detachments. They've often been problematic, or interpreted to be problematic, like Star Shatter or Bringers of Flame or whatnot.
Yeah.
The changing the expected values of units moving around the board is hard to balance effectively.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple fun questions.
It's Toraxes.
Toraxes.
Are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many? How many do you think? 4? 6?
3 to 4. 6 could be fine. They're not a lot of points. They can tank shock, not the best tank shock in the world, and sometimes they survive and drive around. And digging for beans is a euphemism for like focusing and.
Those are where the beans are. They're in the middle of the board.
Yeah. Often I find like the sabotage and recover assets are horrifying draws in a lot of turns because like, oh shit, like do I pitch this, or like you have units that will try to do those actions, but a lot of players have list builds that will punish you for having a guy like trying to stand around in a location, because especially with Eldar likely being more prevalent in the meta, like they can reach out and touch that guy. So being able to threaten those as like well, you're going to get a 0 and you're holding onto this card, so you're not only missing scoring, you're down a CP if you want to cycle it, because trying to repeat to recover a sabotage is just miserable. Because, well, what if they just kill my guy again? And you're just stuck in that cycle. So Toraxes aren't bad to have just in numbers, because those generally will survive whatever tries to like jump through walls and kill it. So I don't mind that in terms of how the list ends up running.
Fair enough.
It's really, I don't know, meta dependent. it's fine. It's spicy. That's why I like it.
Fair, fair. We always love some spice. All right, and speaking of spice, I want to come to Robert once again as the person who's played more super heavies than anyone I know in 10th edition so far. Do they have a place in this detachment?
I guess if you're gonna put them in a detachment, because I do, and it breaks my heart to say this, think that they're dead, and I know a lot of people will argue that they're never really even alive. But if you're gonna run them in a detachment, this is the one to do it because they can't take advantage. It's a keyword problem, right? They can't take advantage of really any other detachment. But at least here, they can go through walls, right? So it's something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even then, all the other strats looking at them, they can't use. They can only use the -1 damage and go through wall strats. That's the only thing that they have access to. But
Which one do you take?
with an asterisk, a Baneblade going through a wall is hilarious. So
That's a good question.
and,
I
and,
like.
I mean,
I like Nick's question. He was saying, he's like, all right, well, if we're gonna take one, which one is it gonna be?
the Storm Sword's still really good.
Still.
I mean, like 2 plus D6 damage is no joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Take 3 of those.
That sounds like a fun teams list at the very least. That is a fun question as well because I know several of the people in here. I know Nick and David at least play a lot of teams. Is Hammer better in teams than it is in singles, or is it still, if you're gonna do one of these, it should still be combined arms?
If somebody told me they were playing Hammer in my team, well, first of all, I'm the guard player on my team, so like it would be me.
David, I'm playing it on my own team.
Well, sometimes Chris Daly plays on my team, and then he gets guard. If he told me he was playing Hammer, I would tell him, no, you're not. It's not like in the games that Nick is talking about where it does get those little advantages. That's still playing for like the eking out an 11, and guard just feels like such a powerhouse in teams when you can manipulate good setups for yourself, like those big open boards or those really good matchups that can't deal with your tanks. I usually use guard in teams as like things go well, guard gets a 20. Things don't go well, guard pulls a 12 to an 8. This more feels like things go well, guard gets a 12. Things go bad, guard gets an 8. And like that's kind of the fail case for a more aggressive open board list. Also, Bridgehead exists, so like you're having to beat Bridgehead and combined arms in teams, and I don't think you're doing it with like some maybe singles effective driving Toroxes through walls. We also play on GW, so like there aren't that many walls to even drive through. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think this does teams much better unless you, for some reason, need your guard player to be trying to get those small wins or small losses, which doesn't feel like what I want to use guard for
Fair.
in teams.
Nick, what are your thoughts? Is there any hope for this in teams?
Like WT singles, it seems interesting. Like I'm sure you can win GTs with it, but you can just play Bridgehead or combined and just tell them all their models are dead, and then you win the game that way. Because I don't understand Bridgehead at the moment. I don't understand like rerolls to wounds. Like, oh, here's your Imperial Knights army or your player, and you was like, well, your guys are now all dead. Like, goodbye. Like, I'm gonna go eat pizza again. It's but that's what 3 months, and then they fix it, or
Yeah, we'll see. We probably have until March when they'll fix it, but until then,
definitely gonna be playing that for a while.
yeah. Well, gentlemen, I think this has been a lot of fun. I think hopefully people have learned a lot from this. I'll go ahead and end off with just a general question about like what upcoming events you have and what in general you're kind of looking to take your codex to and actually have some success. We'll start with David. I know your next event's on the index.
Yeah. So my next event is Warzone Atlanta, which is just index. So a random index list of Scions and tanks. Like if you've seen any list I've ever played, it's that. Just slightly nerfed because other people took guard to worlds and did well.
You dirty net lister, you.
Right? Yeah. if I were, I think the next event is like a GT like 2, 3 months out, because we have a 2 month old daughter, so I'm not going to nearly as many events as I used to. Um, but if I were, it would just be a combined arms list that is playing like a Dorn tank commander, 2 exterminator, 2 Leman Russ, 2 scout sentinel, 2 engineer, 2 Psionic. Basically, just a lot of the things I think are good, I took 2 ofs, and then the 20-man Krieg brick, and whatever artillery is most effective against what I'm worried about. So, if Eldar takes over the world, maybe we just play 18 mortars and make them cry. Or even just 9 mortars might be enough. But yeah,
Fair.
just good stuff. Maybe I make the random list builder and just actual random generate a list and play it. Who knows?
Do it.
Do it. That'll be a challenge. Anybody who's watching this video, if we'll put something up. If you can random generate a list and take it to a GT, go at least 4 wins, we'll give you a special shout out in the video. Robert, what about you? What upcoming events do you have going on?
Yeah, just a small little for fun 3-man event this weekend. I'm actually going to bring mechanized to that because they are letting us use the new rules.
Mechanized is so fun.
Is like, to me, because you were talking about teams earlier, I think mechanized is the team's choice for guard because I think it does much better into the mirror. Because chances are, if you're playing against guard, you're probably gonna run into like bridgehead, right? And transports are bridgehead's biggest nightmare, right? So I'm playing around with it. We'll see how it goes. Whatever. And otherwise, I'm doing Clutch City down in Houston in March. So depending on when the codex comes out, who knows? If it's not, God, it better be out by March. If it's not out by March, yeah, I'm playing Bridgehead, like 188 models, all that stupid crap.
Nice.
And then if it is, I don't know. Well, we'll see how. I'm actually excited for mechanized. I think it has a lot of cool tricks and it can do a whole lot. And it has a ton of pieces on the board. So it just makes it incredibly easy to do every single secondary you want. So past that, I don't know.
Fair. All right, Nick, what kind of upcoming events you got and what are you looking to take to them?
The next ones are like index ones without the codex being legal, unfortunately. So like scrimming against Team Poland and then some Valentine's Day teams event things, so still have to rock the old stuff, which is unfortunate because there's no like enthusiasm for it. But I +1 for the mechanized because there's a lot of fun tricks you can do with it. The transports are fun in general. Having like nested units on objectives increases your scoring potential significantly. Having guys get out behind walls or get out in like weird positions that mess up charges. Krieg heavy flamer teams mechanized are cuckoo bananas. 5-1 to 18-inch +1 to wounds, then Overwatch for another set, and then shoot on death at any target. That has to be a mistake, right?
We'll see. Yeah.
Rude.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like dropping that team off, like Torax, like just advance, jump out, have an optimal like position to cover an Overwatch on a unit that wants to move, and now they're just in decision lands and they're like scratching their head, and you can just sit back and like enjoy the frustration that they're experiencing with that nonsense unit.
Sounds like fun. All right, Nick, we're gonna come right back to you. Any closing thoughts before we let you go?
Guard good.
Guard go. We love it. Robert?
Don't forget, a Krieg heavy weapons team and a unit of engineers do fit inside of a transport together. Just a little food for thought. That's all I got. Guard is good.
That's true. I like that. David, any closing thoughts?
Build your weird detachment lists. Change the top line to combined arms. Genuinely ask yourself, is it better as combined arms before you submit it?
Totally fair. Well, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure. I hope everybody watching has had a good time learning a little bit more about the new combined arms and Hammer of the Emperor. We have a lot more of these coming up right around the corner with a lot more guests talking about all the different stuff. And we'll even end off, I don't know who we'll do it with yet, but talking about the new absolute meta killer that is Bridgehead. But thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys all next time.
Bye.